Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. And welcome to our special program, Know Your Candidate. And tonight, by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are honored to be joined by one of the candidates for City Council District 24, our sister Moumita, who is the youngest candidate in the district. And I'm very proud to be with her tonight to talk about her mission, her vision. But I would like to join all of you for joining me and joining us, in fact, for this program. And let me once again reiterate and underline that we are proud of seeing our young generation taking part in this political process in this country and in our city, because for us, as we always say, that we are not here just to take, but to give back. We are here to give contribution, to be contributors. And so we must not be seen as burdens on the city or on the nation, but we are coming here to contribute, to make it easy for everyone to live. And seeing our young generation taking part is truly a relief for all of us, alhamdulillah. So thank you, Sister Moumita. In the midst of the busiest schedule that you have, you can join me tonight to discuss and to educate me and us and all of us in our community about what we're going to do, about politics in general. And so let me begin by asking you to tell us more about yourself. I'm not going to introduce you, although I read your website, but I want you to talk about yourself, a bit about your background, about your involvements in public life, and of course why it came to your decision to take part, to run for public office.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I just want to say to the audience, I just want to, say to the audience, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. This is such a historic moment for our community, especially the Muslim community. As you know, this district has one of the largest Muslim population than any other district in the city, and then one of the largest South Asian population in the city. My name is Moumita Ahmed. I'm a community organizer, civic leader, progressive community leader who has been at the front lines of so many movements across the country and right here in New York City and in this district. I was the political director of Council Member Costa Constantinides. Prior to that, I was the field and education director for that and helped pass ranked choice voting with Common Cause. I also co-founded the organization Millennials for Bernie Sanders back in 2016, which has over 500,000 followers. And, I've worked for so many candidates, social media director for Justice Democrats. I worked with AOC, with Rashida, Ilhan Omar, all of these amazing candidates Congress, congressional members, right, that we all love and are proud of. And so my work has been extensive in terms of making sure our working class communities are represented. I co-founded two organizations, New Reformers PAC and Bangladeshi Americans for Political Progress, to help advance, to create a voting bloc for the Bangladeshi community. And during the pandemic, I started the Queens Mutual Aid Network, as you saw in the video before this, the ad, where I helped over 2,000 families access medicine and food, and also helped 12 families who are undocumented with rent relief, because our undocumented community members did not receive pandemic assistance.
I see.
And now I'm running for office because the very community members who we've helped, who are still struggling to pay rent, have come to me and said, Moumita, as since you're the only renter running and you're working class and you've been with us for this long, we want you to step up and run for office. I'm running because of all of you.
I see. And now you are the candidate, and in fact, you are the youngest candidate among all. Fortunately or unfortunately, in this regard, we see quite a lot of South Asians candidates, and we hope as I said, it is in the first place, it's not about winning. It is about taking the process. Allah is going to decide who's going to win, by the way. And so if you happen to win this race, what would be priorities? And if I may say, what would be possibly considered a unique agenda that you bring to the council?
Yeah, absolutely. You
You're
know,
talking about you're talking about housing, right? So anything else that you want to add?
So look, the council gets thousands of dollars worth of discretionary funding. And what I've noticed is that our part of the District of Jamaica and community-based organizations that serve our community members barely receive anything or have received anything from the previous council member. You look at, for example, a Jamaica Muslim Center, the senior center that's there only gets $5,000, which is nothing because our seniors are the most underrepresented, marginalized, and working class seniors in the entire district. They're struggling with mental health, they're struggling with healthcare, they're struggling with housing, right? Many of them are stuck being babysitting their children, living in small one-bedroom apartments, sharing with their grandkids and their family, their children, but also sometimes other families because of these sublet apartments, or they're living in illegal basements. So we really need to take care of those peoples and fund the community organizations that work with our seniors, work with our working class community members, work with our mosques and our temples and all of the groups that are serving these communities, our communities, right? And so that's a huge priority for me personally because of what I've witnessed, what I've experienced as a working class person. And so definitely equitable distribution of the funds.
Yes. And that's what we are experiencing. In one hand, that we don't have enough information, or maybe we don't require information, so we don't know how to get those funds. But by the way, coming to our little general discussions about our New York City, lately, as you know, that New Yorkers are having some security concern. Just in the month of January, we have even more shootings compared to 2020 last year. In your own opinions, is it caused by among the defunding, police defunding, and how do you see this, and how you are going to deal with the existence of mistreatment of some members of the police department?
So look, actually back in when James Gennaro, who's one of my opponents running, when he was council member, there was more crimes than we have now. So I don't think it correlates in any way with in terms of defunding or the police. I think that what's really, really important is where this funding, right? What is the police, where is the police using this funding? Like, where is it going? The police almost get more $10 billion budget if you consider overtime, right? And you consider the other stuff like lawsuits that they settled over $1 billion worth of lawsuit this year. And you know, we do have to address police brutality. All of us who are immigrants are here in this country because Martin Luther King and Black civil rights activists passed a package that included that people can migrate from countries like Bangladesh and Haiti and so many other communities. We have Black Muslim brothers and sisters who are targeted by the police. We saw that the NYPD surveilled Muslim student associations across the city, including in my university where they don't even have jurisdiction when I went to Stony Brook University. So it's really, really important that we hold the police accountable. And what I've proposed is reshifting the budget to take away from surveillance technology, public relations, overseas headquarters, right? And instead putting that money into housing schools, right? That doesn't mean that I'm against everyday, like, police officers, right? That just means that there are certain parts of the police department that need to be, that we need to just like get rid of, because it doesn't serve anybody. Instead, they harass people, right? And my father was one of the victims of stop and frisk when I was 12 years old, right after right when the Iraq War started, and he was practically kidnapped in the street, and fined, and his rights violated. So we have an obligation to address this. In the name of Bilal radiallahu, he was a black man who read the Adhan, right? He was the first man to read the Adhan. So we as Muslims have to show solidarity with our black Muslim brothers and sisters and black brothers and sisters.
And of course, showing solidarity to our black brothers and sisters at the black movement, lives movement matter. It doesn't mean that we have to hate other side, but we want to bring changes into the system, because this is a systemic problem, I think, and we have to underline that. But it doesn't mean that we don't like the police. Police is here to secure us, to make us safe. But
Absolutely.
Surely we must
Absolutely.
we must bring reform.
Absolutely. Well, what I was going to say, look, if the police officer that stopped my dad, he was white. Maybe if it was a Bangladeshi police officer, it would have been a different interaction, right? And we know that 50-something% of the police force come from like other parts of the state, like from Long Island. They don't even live in the community. So I think that we have to take a hard look at our police departments. It doesn't mean that all police are necessarily bad, but it is an institutional problem, and we do have to address it. And instead of punishing and locking up our neighbors, we need to invest in housing. We need to invest in education. We need to make sure that people can afford to live here so that they don't resort to crimes or gun violence and other means, right? So we have to have a more merciful approach to how we handle, or compassionate approach to how we handle this issue.
I see. I thank to the President Biden that today he just signed an executive order on racial equity, and we hope that to be implemented. But I do believe that change can happen only through education, and it's not only by a signature of a president. So we need to work hard to make sure that systemic racism in our community must be considered as our shared enemy. Now, Sister Moumita, we come back to another issue here. As you know, that District 24 is a very deeply diverse community, racially, ethnically, and also religiously. We have every single religion here in this community. We have Muslims, alhamdulillah, it's crowded Muslims, particularly South Asian and Bangladeshis. We have Jews, we have Christians, of course, and Hindus and Sikh and others. Now, this is a good opportunity for you to clarify something, because recently I heard that there is a criticisms against you, that something in the past you have said about a segment of community, which is undesirable to them, and it had been used by some to attack you. So it's time for you to clarify about the statement that you have made about certain segment of the community in our district.
Thank you so much for that opportunity. I just want to clarify that I actually did not make an anti-Semitic statement at all. What happened was somebody else posted a photo of that said boycott Israel. Somebody else did, not me. Somebody else, with a picture of I guess a baby on a platter, and it was 6 years ago. Okay, and I shouldn't have interacted with it, and that is where maybe the person that I am now, I wouldn't have done, the 30-year-old me wouldn't have interacted with it. But what I responded to the photo was, my heart beats for the Palestinian children, which is true. my heart does beat for our Palestinian children, but it also beats for Israeli children, and it also beats for all children,
Of course.
especially the children in this district where one
Sure.
in 14 of our homeless are facing homelessness. So I did not say anything anti-Semitic. It's unfortunate that people, our opponent used it, particularly Mr. Gennaro and his Wall Street Trump supporting billionaires sent out a mailer, and his campaign sent out a mailer making it look as if I posted that picture when I didn't. And it's unfortunate because it's ranked choice voting. There was no need to do that. And I clarified my statement, but our assembly member Daniel Rosenthal decided to disregard it despite me answering, despite me making clarification. And so, we have to understand that at the end of the day, in this district, there are people in our district who have different views on this issue in particular, right? So I support people's right to boycott. I support everybody's right to do that, whether it's against the fossil fuel industry, whether it's against whether it's against a company that's like pro I don't know, that have like said racist things in the past, whatever it is. I'm not an anti-Semite. I've been endorsed by the Jewish vote, and I have my campaign manager is Jewish. I have been I've had I've fought with my Jewish brothers and sisters for years in the movement. I supported Senator Bernie Sanders, right? He's Jewish. So it's a really unfortunate circumstance, and it's really sad that my opponents took advantage of that, and instead of getting behind me, they double down, and it's divide and conquer. That's all it is.
So yeah, this is the consequence of being a part of the public figure, because now you are a public figure, by the way, at least here in New York City, because you're a candidate for city council, and it is a consequence. I'm a person who's very much involved in the interfaith, but it doesn't mean that I have my own personal view on things. Now, this is democracy and this is freedom of speech. But by the way, it needs some clarification, because I think it has been criticized in many ways. But let's go to another one. This is also, as I said, this is a good platform for you to clarify some issues that are being raised by some out there. There are some individuals criticized that you are very much in line into supporting the liberals. And I don't have to specify what does it mean to be liberalism here, but so a lot of people are talking on the social media about this, that Moumita is too much into liberal tendency and so on and so forth. I know you're progressive. Bernie Sanders is progressive, but it's a chance for you to discuss some issues on your stand on some issues that that people might be questioning.
Yeah, I'm not sure what liberal means. I like to think that I'm common sense, just as Bernie Sanders have said that right now we are living in a country, one of the richest countries on the planet, yet our people are struggling. Millions of people are unemployed, right? Millions are facing eviction, and we have billionaires like Jeff Bezos who made $3,000 every second of 2020. That's a lot of money, and that's immoral. So my policy is for everyone, right? For me, I don't think it's liberal to say we need to tax the rich. We need to make sure that money is invested in housing, education, right? I don't think that's liberal at all. That's common sense. I don't think it's liberal to say I want Medicare for all, so that everybody has access to healthcare, so that pharmaceutical companies, right, that they don't, because they're pouring millions of dollars into lobbying to prevent Medicare for all from passing. Whether you look at here in New York State, where we have the New York Health Act, which would give everybody access to healthcare, but it's because of the lobbying from the pharmaceutical companies. And I don't think it's too liberal to say that everybody deserves free education. In the 70s, CUNY and colleges that were public were practically free. People paid like $200 to go to college. And now people like myself are in debt, thousands and thousands of dollars. I don't think that's too liberal at all. In fact, I think that's common sense. Working class people need help. So, um, for me, I am running on platforms and issues. It's not about ideology, left versus right. It's really just about what everyday people need right now, and what we need, what we, as candidates, like what kind of platform are we supporting, and who are we going to take money from? I know that I'm going to be working for you, for all of you, because I'm not taking any money from real estate developers who raise our property taxes, right, and displace our communities from our neighborhoods. I'm not taking money from police unions who prevent or obstruct somebody from getting justice when their family member is killed through police brutality. I'm not taking money from the fossil fuel industry who are polluting our air, our water, and that's not too liberal. That's just being a good person. That's just being a moral person.
You know, New York City is great. This is a great city in the world. But I think one of the most important problem that we are facing is the gaps between the haves and the have-nots. Economic gaps, social gaps. What do you have in mind as as a member of the council to do in the future to minimize the gap between the haves and the have-nots in our city?
Yeah, so this city has 100 billionaires, and we need to work with state legislators to tax them, tax the rich, because right now we are at a deficit of like $9 billion and we need money. Where is it going to come from? It's got to come from the billionaires and the millionaires who live here, right? And the other thing is, we, with the council, we have to work with our state legislators. We have to pressure them to do this. And on top of that, we need to make sure that anything like a new large development that's going to raise our property taxes, right? That those developments have to submit a racial impact study. And that's something that Public Advocate Jamani Williams have advocated for, so that we don't have new developments that are going to gentrify the neighborhood, raise our property taxes, make it hard for people to afford homes here or rent here. So these are things that I would do to sort of close the gap. I would expand community land trusts to create more available housing, supportive housing for our working families, making sure that we also work to create a public bank, right? And close any sort of loopholes that real estate developers exploit, and make sure we reform our ULURP process, which is a land use process, because without reforming it, we can't pass, or we can't create more affordable housing, which is what we need. Housing is the most important thing right now because of the pandemic, and that's one way to sort of close the gap, as well as taxing the rich.
I see. Now coming something into our own particular need as a community, as a Muslim community. I mean, there are almost, or if not more, 1 million Muslims in New York City. But so far we have schools closed during the Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. Do you consider, if Allah make easy for you, to propose that Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha can be a citywide holiday? It's not only schools closed, but basically it's a holiday. It's just like Christmas and Hanukkah and others. I don't mean to impose on you, but we must continue dreaming.
No, absolutely. When I was in school, or when I, sometimes at work, right? Like it's it's difficult where you have to sort of like take it out of your sick leave just
Mm.
to spend time with your family. And I think that a diverse city like New York City should be more accommodating to our immigrant community, especially the large Muslim community. And so, absolutely, I would support that.
Wonderful. Now, as a community of immigrants, although U.S. is an immigrant nation, of course, we are all coming to this country except native Indian. We need and must struggle for self-empowerment, economically, politically, socially, educationally, etc. What do you have in mind in terms of programming in order to empower our community, particularly immigrant, and I wanted to say more particularly South Asian here in this District 24?
Yeah, so one of the great things about our campaign is our policies help everybody, no matter who you are.
Mhm.
And that's because we take a very class, like a class lens and or class and race-based approach where we are looking at people in our community who are hurting the most, who need help the most, who have the least, right? And so what we're proposing is that, especially for renters, right, where so many people are facing evictions right now, that we provide right to counsel, which means legal support that's language accessible. So in Bangla, Hindi, Spanish, right, language accessible legal support to our renters. Also, free immigration lawyers for our immigrant communities, especially people dealing with who are undocumented. And also, so I would create a task force to go through every single legal document in the city to make sure that it's in plain English or and it's also translated in language in a plain way, in a simplistic way. Because what I've noticed is even some of the documents that the city translates, in regards to like the Bangladeshi community, for example, the language itself is not like simple enough to understand. Like it's like I think they like contract somebody from Calcutta or something to do translations, and it just seems off because it's like not relatable. So it's there, there's all these like little things, and one of the ways to close that gap is by actually hiring people from the community who speak those languages. So those are things I would offer to our constituents is language interpretation, language services, and help with filling out forms and things like that, and also doing more work to educate our workers about unionizing and and jobs, that union jobs, because I think that's really important, because many of us immigrants, we face workplace harassment and we don't know what's going on because we don't know our rights. So I think those are things that the council can help with and should help with, is providing support and training and like know your rights training and access to education, political education around unionizing in the workplace.
Don't forget, Sister Mamita, that domestic problem, including domestic violence in our own community, is real. And as a woman, as a millennial, and now is running for office, how do you take this to tackle this issue that we have in the community? Unfortunately, we are mostly immigrant, if not, I can say huge majority of the immigrants are still fearful to be open. Sometimes we consider that religiously not right to open when someone is being abused in the community, being abused at home. So as a city council member, let's say, how are you going to handle that domestic issue in our community?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, with discretionary funding, right? Like our community-based organizations that do this work, like ASIA and Saki and so many others that do gender justice work, aren't well funded enough, and they're often like struggling for resources for women. So I think we really need to emphasize, or we need to support right, these organizations, and we need to create more resources for survivors. And this is very dear to my heart because during the pandemic, I actually helped a survivor of domestic violence, a Bangladeshi woman named Nilofer. There's actually a little mini documentary about it where she was in a homeless shelter, and she had COVID,
Mm.
and she had no family here. And it was the Queens Mutual Aid Network. We swooped in and we helped. We helped her get her results from the hospital. We helped her get acquire medicine and money, whatever she needed. We moved her from her shelter, a horrible shelter situation, to a hotel, for example, funded by the government. So there's so much work that needs to be done for women in our communities, and so many of them ended up in homeless shelters because they're DV survivors. So, more funding, more language accessibility, more opportunities to train them in skills so that they can support themselves. Because oftentimes our women don't leave toxic situations because they feel like, if I don't have any skill sets to really go join the workforce or to take care of myself and my children alone, so they like stick to their abusive homes with their husbands because they don't have the support or resources.
Great. Now as a millennial, you're 30 years old. That's very young. What do you have in mind in order to empower our second generation Muslims here, and not only Muslim but also immigrant in general? And so, if you happen to be elected and you are young, a father of millennials, any specific program that you have in mind to advance our millennial interests in the city?
Yeah, so all of the things I mentioned would help young people. Our young people we've been translating for our parents since the wee age of is 4, 5, 6. I started translating for my parents when I was 8 years old, when I learned English. And so there's a lot of responsibilities that we have as young immigrants, that are often ignored because we don't have representation in city hall and in legislator to speak to our struggles. And that's really important to me, because there's a saying, you can't be what you can't see,
Mm.
right? So we need more of us to be in these positions where we're in city council, or we're district leaders or county committee members, or there's more of us in our legislature, in our government, right? Working for our communities, telling our stories, and specifically policies I would support, especially with younger people, not just like millennials, because I think like we really need to go into to help our youth,
Mhm.
is create more student youth employment programs, after school programs that would give young people the opportunity to find good jobs, make trade school free, make sure that our CUNYs are invested, right? That they have the money, and that we actually move towards free CUNY, free education. That would really help millennials and young people, and create opportunities locally, and for them to engage with our community. And also, one thing that I am going to introduce if I'm elected is participatory budgeting,
Oh,
which is something that our council hasn't done, but I've seen it done in places like District 39. Council member Brad Lander, who's one of my favorite council members, he's implemented participatory budgeting, and that's been really great in terms of bringing diverse communities together and deciding on how they want the money to be spent. And I think that's what's important, that at the end of the day, you know, for me, I want to give autonomy to people. I want people to decide and determine what they want to do with the money, with their taxpayer money. And I'm just here to sort of like facilitate that and listen to them, starting with the most working class people, most vulnerable people, from our seniors, elderly, disabled folks.
wow. Now, before the last one, sorry for taking such long. Sometimes it's so difficult to balance between many inclinations, many interests of ours and many people around us. Now, you are a Bangladeshi Muslim immigrant, millennial young, but American. Now, when you are elected, you are going to be elected as New York City council member, District 24. It's not only for Muslims, not only for Bangladesh, it's not only, but for everyone. But sometimes we are honest to ourselves. We have a specific interest. Just to give you an example, when you talked about boycotting Israel, when you respond to someone, in fact, you didn't say that, but you respond to someone. There is an interest that belongs to certain to segment of community, and so how you are going to balance your self and your service in these coming days, if you are elected as a member, to a variety of interests of the people that you're serving.
I think, me not taking a position on this is actually respecting everybody's interests. Because at the end of the day, like I said, a 30-year-old me would not have responded to somebody saying boycott Israel. But at the same time, I'm not going to say that I'm against boycotting at all. Because there are people in this district, especially Muslim people, Palestinian people, who for them it is the way that they choose to protest the whatever injustice, right, imposed on the Palestinian people. So for me, by saying that I'm not I'm a lot of my opponents, many of my opponents, they took a stand. They said I am I'm against BDS, right? So they actually took a stand, and in doing so, they alienated a community here, right? Many Muslims, and not just in the Muslims. There are lots of people. There's Black and Latino people who also support Palestine, right? And protest and engage in boycott. And they kind of like left them out. Versus, I actually said, you know what? At the end of the day, I am going to respect people's right to boycott, right? And I'm also I again, I didn't ever I didn't make the tweet myself, right? So I'm not anti-Semitic, and I've even made a public statement clarifying my position, saying that I support my Jewish brothers and sisters, and I have done it. If you look at my past history, I've stood up for the Jewish community. I've stood up when Bernie was attacked, right, by Trump with anti-Semitic tweets and things like that, or when others attacked him for anti-Semitic tweets. I stood with Daniel Rosenthal when he condemned the hateful graffiti that popped up in our neighborhood. I condemn any sort of violence against our Jewish brothers and sisters. And even tonight in a debate, I've reiterated my support for our Jewish community. But I don't think this issue of BDS, right, is necessarily like a Jewish versus Muslim issue. It's just a matter of, hey, our First Amendment rights say that people have the right to boycott, right? And I'm not going to stand in the middle of that. I'm not going to take a position on this. My position is what it says on the Constitution, which is people have a right to boycott.
All right. So it is a value, basically. It's a human value. Number one, to express your own personal stand. And it's a value. Some people may disagree, but it's their right to disagree, by the way. So, final words, Sister Moumita. You tell our audience what you hope from them, for you.
Come out to vote for me. Rank me as your number one. And, if you have somebody else that you like more, that's fine too. Make me your number two. But rank us. Don't just pick one person. This is a historic race. You get to rank your favorite candidates by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 4 Bangladeshis running. You could rank all of us. And I am just like you, a renter. And my family, you know, they're small homeowners. My uncle, he lives in by Queens Hospital, Suleiman Khan, and he has helped so many people find work at his factory. He's a small homeowner. So, you know, I am fighting for the small homeowners and the renters against special interests, against billionaires in Wall Street. And I am also the only candidate that has a major union, local union endorsement, Communication Workers of America. I also have endorsement from the Jewish Vote, Working Families Party, New York Communities for Change, Hispanic American Voter Association, New York Immigration Coalition, the people that started the JFK airport protests, and oversee over 200 refugee groups, Muslim Democratic Club of New York, Muslims for Progress, Bangladeshi American Advocacy Group, Bangladeshi Americans for Political Progress. I have the most diverse coalition behind me. The Tenants Pack, Amplify Her, so many. I mean, it just won't stop. So it's really, and the Social Workers Union. So it won't stop. That's because we won't stop. We're going to keep going. We're going to fight for our working families, and we're going to all go together to City Hall. So vote, rank me your 1 or your 2. But make sure, no matter what you do, that you go vote on February 2nd. February 2nd.
Yeah, in fact, early voting had been started since last 4 days. So you can go to your college, and I think there are 3 places to vote earlier. But the election day, it means the last day to vote, is February 2nd. Okay, so thank you so much, Sister Moumita. I just wanted to say to our audience that, you know, we are here to let you know our candidates, their capacity, their ability, their commitment, their sincerity. You know, our candidates, and I'm using word plural, we are proud of all of them, because particularly 2 women from among the Muslim Bangladeshi, I'm personally very proud of them because they represent our community in many ways. You know, from da'wah perspective, people can see that Muslim women are so actively involved in public life as well, and that's making us all proud, inshallah. So please take part in this process. This is our responsibility, civic responsibility. At the same time, you know, to such extent, it is also a part of our religious responsibility as well, to make sure that politics for us is a part of Amr al-Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar. It is advancing good and preventing bad in our community. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us, and we congratulate all our candidates. May Allah make easy for them, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.